Today, we're exploring the strangest farm implements ever created in American history. From bizarre designs to questionable engineering choices, these machines will make you wonder what their inventors were thinking. Farming has always been a hotbed for innovation, but not every invention becomes a staple of agricultural progress. Some creations were so impractical, dangerous, or just plain weird that they quickly became footnotes in farming history. And stick around till the end, because the last implement on our list caused a revolution in farming that nobody saw coming. The early 20th century brought numerous attempts to mechanize tedious farm tasks, and few were as simultaneously ingenious and terrifying as the spike corn Husker-Glove. These hand tools looked like something out of a medieval torture chamber, but were supposedly designed with efficiency in mind. Farmers would wear these leather gloves equipped with sharp metal hooks, spikes, or serrated ridges positioned across the palm and thumb. The theory was simple enough. The metal protrusions would catch and tear corn husks, allowing workers to strip ears of corn much faster than with bare hands. Various manufacturers competed to create the ideal husking glove, with some featuring single-hook spikes while others sported multiple metal ridges arranged in patterns that resembled brass knuckles. What the advertisements neglected to mention was how frequently these devices injured their users. When a farmer's hand would slip or miscalculate a movement, these metal spikes meant for corn husks would instead find human flesh. Period medical journals from farming communities reported spikes of hand lacerations during harvest season, with doctors becoming adept at treating what they called Husker's hand. Despite their dangers, companies marketed these implements as essential time savers. The J.H. Putman Company claimed their Lightning Husker could increase a worker's output by 300%, a claim that conveniently ignored the time lost to bandaging injured hands. Some models came with a leather padding supposedly designed to protect the user's palm, though these often wore down after minimal use. The concept of planting seeds in orderly rows rather than scattering them haphazardly was revolutionary for increasing crop yields. Hand-push seed drills of the 19th century promised precision without the expense of horse-drawn equipment. These human-powered contraptions featured wooden or metal wheels, a seed hopper, and a complex series of tubes that would deposit seeds at supposedly consistent intervals. The reality of using these machines was far less elegant than the theory. Early models were notoriously finicky, with seeds frequently jamming in the distribution mechanisms. Farmers often found themselves stopping every few yards to unclog the devices, making the process more time-consuming than traditional broadcast seeding by hand. The ironically named Labor Saver seed drill, introduced in 1865, weighed nearly 80 pounds when fully loaded with seed. Pushing this unwieldy contraption through uneven, freshly tilled soil required significant physical strength. Oh, and real quick, please take a moment and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. Even when functioning correctly, these machines required constant attention to ensure the seeding depth remained consistent. If the operator didn't maintain steady pressure on the handles, seeds might be planted too deeply or left exposed on the soil surface. Field tests showed germination rates were often worse than with traditional methods, despite the neat rows that did manage to sprout. Post-war America saw the introduction of specialized farm radios by manufacturers like Zenith and RCA. These battery-powered units were marketed specifically to farmers working far from electrical outlets, promising entertainment and weather updates to boost morale in the fields. Built with military surplus casings, these radios were nearly indestructible, but impractically heavy, some weighing 18 pounds without batteries. Farmers often needed wheelbarrows just to move them between work areas. Their technical performance rarely matched their rugged construction, with reception frequently deteriorating in rural areas precisely when important weather warnings were broadcast. The most significant issue was distraction. Farm accident reports showed a concerning spike in injuries attributed to workers paying more attention to radio programming than to dangerous equipment. The Nebraska Agricultural Safety Council documented numerous cases of workers becoming engrossed in popular shows like The Lone Ranger while ignoring their surroundings. One notorious incident involved a farmer so captivated by a baseball broadcast that he accidentally released his tractor's brake, sending it through a chicken coop. Hog Oilers represent a genuine attempt to solve a real problem that missed the mark entirely. These devices were designed to apply protective oil to hog skin, preventing parasites like lice and mange mites while protecting against sun damage. Since manually oiling each animal in a large herd was time-consuming, these self-service mechanisms were supposed to let hogs oil themselves. The designs range from simple rollers to elaborate contraptions with names like the Swine Servant and Hog Joy. When a hog rubbed against the device, oil would transfer to its skin, at least in theory. In practice, most hogs showed remarkably little interest in using them. The Practical Farmer published a letter in 1922 from an Iowa farmer who purchased an expensive automatic hog conditioning station only to watch his entire herd ignore it for months. When hogs did use these devices, oil distribution was inconsistent, with excessive application on their backs while leaving vulnerable areas untreated. Mechanical failures were common. Many units either dispensed too much oil, creating environmental hazards, or became permanently clogged. The more complex models featured intricate gearing systems that routinely jammed with dirt, transforming expensive equipment into useless farm decorations. Late 19th century horse-drawn combines attempted to revolutionize harvesting by combining, cutting, threshing, and cleaning in one machine. Their ambition was matched only by their impracticality. These behemoths required 20 to 40 horse teams arranged in complex formations. Managing this many animals demanded at least 3 skilled operators working in perfect coordination. Weighing over 5 tons when loaded, these machines frequently sank into fields and became nearly impossible to maneuver. Their complex power transmission systems, gears, chains, and belts transferring power from ground wheels to mechanisms broke down constantly. Daily repairs could take hours while horses stood idle in the heat. The economics never worked out. The cost of feeding and maintaining so many horses, combined with frequent breakdowns, typically exceeded any labor savings. Despite the innovative concept, most farmers returned to traditional methods until gasoline-powered combines arrived decades later. In the early 1900s, manufacturers marketed steam-powered cars as dual-purpose farm vehicles, transportation to town, and farm power source all in one. The Stanley Steamer Farm Special and Double Agricultural model promised to replace both horses and stationary engines. Reality quickly dampened enthusiasm. Starting required lighting a fire under the boiler and waiting 20 to 45 minutes for steam pressure, impractical for urgent farm tasks. Maintenance was extraordinarily demanding, with the White Steamer manual recommending complete boiler disassembly and cleaning every 200 miles. Safety concerns proved most damaging. The Farm Safety Digest documented 7 fatal accidents between 1905 and 1910, involving agricultural steam cars, usually from boiler explosions. One Iowa incident killed a farmer and his 2 sons while attempting to pull a stump. Economically, these vehicles made little sense. Purchase costs ran 3 to 4 times higher than good horse teams, while ongoing expenses for quality fuel and extensive maintenance further diminished their appeal. By 1915, gasoline tractors had rendered these steam-powered curiosities obsolete, adding them to the long list of ambitious agricultural failures. Walk-behind tractors, like those made by Gravely and David Bradley, were marketed as affordable power tools for small farms, designed to help with tilling, mowing, and light plowing. But for farmers who found walking behind them too tiring, manufacturers introduced an attachment known as the Sulky seat, a 2-wheeled platform that let you ride while the machine did the work. On paper, it sounded like a win for ergonomics. In practice, it turned a difficult tool into a dangerous one. 2-wheel tractors already required careful balance and control, especially on rough or sloped ground. Adding a rider shifted the center of gravity dramatically, making the machines prone to tipping, fishtailing, or careening into dishes. Field reports and early user manuals often included warnings about the risk of unexpected directional changes, a polite way of saying you might get thrown off. The Sulky's tiny steel wheels did little to absorb shock. Farmers described the ride as bone-jarring and worse than the plow horse. And since these tractors lacked any sort of suspension or safety bar, tipping backward or jackknifing the machine was a common and painful event. For a generation of small-scale farmers, the Sulky seat was a perfect example of a device that took a hard job and somehow made it worse. The flail represents one of history's most labor-intensive agricultural tools, persisting for centuries despite its brutal inefficiency. Consisting of two wooden sticks connected by a short chain or leather strap, this simple threshing tool required farmers to repeatedly beat harvested grain to separate kernels from stalks and husks. Using a flail demanded both strength and technique. Farmers would swing the hinge-striking portion in rhythmic overhead motions for hours, generating enormous physical strain. Contemporary medical records from the 18th and early 19th centuries documented a condition known as thresher's shoulder, chronic joint inflammation specifically associated with flail use. An experienced worker could thresh only 7 to 8 bushels daily, making grain processing the bottleneck of farm production. The tool's inefficiency became increasingly apparent as farms grew larger. A 200-acre wheat farm might require 30 to 40 person days solely for threshing, an enormous labor investment that limited overall farm productivity. The flail's other significant drawback was at grain loss. Studies of traditional methods suggest that 5 to 10% of grain was either damaged or lost during manual threshing. What's remarkable isn't that the flail eventually disappeared, but how long it persisted. Even after mechanical threshers became available in the 1830s, many smaller farms continued using flails for decades due to the high cost of early machines. Rural museums across America display these implements as reminders of farming's physically punishing past, with many examples showing worn handles polished by generations of calloused hands. Testament to countless hours of backbreaking labor that modern farmers can scarcely imagine. As small lawn and garden tractors grew in popularity during the post-war boom, manufacturers rushed to expand their attachments. One of the most ill-conceived ideas to hit the market was the flail mower, a drum-style cutting implement meant to chew through thick grass and light brush using fast-spinning blades or chains. While the flail mower was effective at shredding vegetation, it was equally good at launching debris at high speeds. Small rocks, sticks, and even chunks of metal became deadly projectiles. Safety guards were either minimal or non-existent on early models, and owner's manuals casually recommended avoiding use near people, homes, or animals, which covered just about every location someone might want to mow. Operators learned quickly that sitting behind a flail mower on a compact tractor was like riding a lawn chair behind a blender. Reports of shattered windows, broken headlights, and injured bystanders weren't uncommon. Some rural extension offices even issued safety bulletins urging homeowners to switch back to rotary mowers or scythes in sensitive areas. Intended to be a tough, no-nonsense mowing solution, the flail mower ended up as one of the most dangerous and overpowered attachments ever bolted to a lawn tractor. Hand-crank corn shellers promise to mechanize one of farming's most tedious tasks, removing dried corn kernels from cobs. These cast-iron devices featured a hopper, rotating mechanism, and separate chutes for kernels and spent cobs. The basic design seemed logical. Insert an ear of corn into the hopper, turn the crank, and let the machine strip kernels from the cob. In reality, these devices created as many problems as they solved. Most models required significant physical effort to operate. Turning the crank against substantial resistance for hours left users with aching shoulders and blistered hands. Throughput proved disappointing. A study by the Iowa Agricultural College in 1887 found that hand shelling averaged 1.5 bushels per hour, while a typical hand crank sheller managed only 2 to 3 bushels, a modest improvement that hardly justified the investment for small farms. Mechanical limitations further reduced their appeal. Most shellers struggled with irregularly shaped ears, frequently jamming and requiring disassembly for clearing. They also left substantial kernels on the cob, with efficiency tests showing 5 to 10% of corn remained unshelled. For most family farms, these machines represented a rare case where mechanization offered little practical advantage over traditional methods.